All right, we're on to Indianapolis. Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts. We've already seen this matchup one time, week 1. Let's just hop right into it. Cody, Stoots, Landry Locker, S&L. Subscribe on all podcast platforms. Watch us live right here on YouTube. Cody Stoots has a list of stuff that is sustainable from the week 1 matchup. I have some strong pushback on this as well, but let's hear what Cody has to say about week 1 and what matters and what doesn't when it comes to the Texans versus the Colts.
So I came up with 4 things to me that 2 that I believe absolutely will repeat in this matchup and 2 that I don't believe are going to repeat in this matchup. So I'm going to start with the pressure on CJ Stroud. Like, that's going to absolutely be a repeat. Like, the offensive line's not going to clean it all up. They got pressure on him in week 1 and sacked him 4 times. That's going to be something that is going to be present in this game. Maybe it's not as bad as Green Bay. Certainly hope it's not. The laissez-faire attitude that the Texans had yesterday about getting things cleaned up on the offensive line, I mean, maybe they're on to something. Maybe they're not. But I believe they're going to pressure CJ Stroud again in this game. So that's going to be present from the first game in this game. Okay. You agree with that one?
Yeah, I don't have much confidence in this offensive line. I know Titus Howard spoke yesterday, and he said it was uncharacteristic what went down. D'Amico Ryan seemed to kind of disagree with that. I think CJ Stroud, even if it's moderate pressure, I think he's going to be pressured. He's just going to have to find a way to get out of it. They got DeForest Buckner coming back as well. He's a monster in the trenches, and we haven't really seen any signs that anything is really changing on the offensive line. Now it's limited observing for us when we go to practice, but I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Titus Howard could say it's uncharacteristic all he wants. They're 6th in quarterback pressure allowed. They're 4th in sacks allowed and total quarterback pressures allowed. And they spent 2 weeks this season not in the top 10 for the week in quarterback pressure allowed. So that the characteristic is what happens on Sunday. So Howard's not correct on that one. I also believe that the Mixon ground game, not to the exact same level, but success on the ground will be present in this one. Until somebody stops Joe Mixon, I'm going to believe that Joe Mixon's going to be a key piece to this offense and the best piece to this offense.
Yeah, he's the most important piece to this offense. As long as Nico Collins is there, I don't even know that it's debatable right now. He's the most important weapon that CJ Stroud has. Is he going to go for a Bill 50? I don't know. I think it'll be a little bit more difficult, but we've yet to see Joe Mixon not be successful when he's played a full game. So I would say it's going to be a factor.
I believe he will be a 100-yard rusher yet again. So that's where all right. So 2 things that I do not believe will be repeated in this matchup. I don't believe the big play disasters from week 1 will get repeated. There's not going to be an Ashton Doolin catching the ball over the middle and going for 60 yards. Alec Pierce isn't going to get behind the defense like he did in week 1. Now, maybe Anthony Richardson can connect on those Adonai Mitchells that he missed, but I just don't know that it's going to be the exact same type of big play disasters that we saw in week 1. I don't think that's showing up in this one. I feel like they've cleaned up that deep stuff. Now, obviously, Green Bay hit a 30-yard touchdown on them, but that was D'Angelo Ross. Kamari Lassiter practiced yesterday. It looks like he's trending towards being back. So the big 60-plus, 50-plus yard plays, I don't believe those are showing up again in this one.
Yeah, I'm not dismissing that possibility. I'm not as confident as you are that that's not going to happen. So I'm not as quick to just throw that aside. I think that's a very strong possibility.
Okay. What makes you say that? Just like as I feel like
what makes you say what makes you think it won't happen?
Well, because they haven't allowed it since week 1. I mean, who's been hitting bombs on them since the first game?
I mean, there's been opportunities. It's not anything they've done. I would say if we actually watch the game, I mean, and you watch the games, like there've been times where guys have been open, the quarterbacks just missed, and that's happened multiple times. And I don't know that they've been attacked as much or had someone as capable. I mean, it's kind of Anthony Richardson's streak as the deep ball. I also think Indianapolis has underrated receivers. Jimmy Ward, I know he got beat last time. He's not going to be playing. So I don't necessarily I'm just not really dismissing it as much as you are on that.
Okay. And then I don't believe they're going to shut down Jonathan Taylor like they did in week 1 either.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the 3 games that Taylor played after the Texans game, he was a monster in all of them. He hasn't played since September. He's supposed to be back for this one. And I just don't believe they're going to shut him down like they did week 1. I feel like that's a little bit closer to an anomaly versus that guy. Now, the Texans as a team are 4th best in the league in stopping the run.
Very good.
Or 8th best in the league stopping the run, but I just don't believe they're shutting down Taylor like that in this matchup.
Yeah, and they did a hell of a job on that, and they've really, like, D'Amico Ryans a lot of times has done a hell of a job. Here's my thing, though, and it is S&L Daily, the daily collaboration between myself and Cody Stoots. We'll be at practice today. We'll hear from the man. I'm intrigued to hear what the man has to say.
Damn it, Bobby.
Bobby Slowick will speak today, so we'll hear what Bobby has to say. But this is why I'm just dismissing everything that we talk about as far as this time versus last time with the Texans and the Colts. I don't even know that anything matters more than the fact that Nico Collins isn't on the field. And the stats that I'll throw your way when it comes to Nico Collins and just how dominant he's been against the Colts with CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud has never played the Colts without Nico Collins. But in Collins' 3 games versus the Colts, he's had 22 catches for 458 yards and 2 touchdowns on 36 targets, which is absolutely insane. And he was a major factor week 1 this year. Just to put in perspective how dominant Nico Collins has been, the all-time NFL receiving yards record over the course of a season is 1964 by Calvin Johnson. That was a hell of a season, 1964. At the pace that Nico Collins is at against the Colts in those 3 games, he would break that record in 13 games. So it's easy to, like, sit here and say, well, they won't do this and they won't do that and they might be able to do this. But Nico Collins, without Nico Collins, I don't know how that impacts Mixon. I think it damn sure impacts Stroud. I don't know how it impacts the whole game. But when you look at the fact that they're not going to have him and the dominance that he's had, I just kind of throw the whole first Colts matchup kind of to the trash. And just to put a cap on it, in 16 games, over 16 games with what Nico's done against the Colts, he would shatter Calvin Johnson's record by 479 yards in 16 games. Like, that's how dominant Nico Collins has been. So all this stuff about, what they can and can't do, I just don't look at it as closely, given the fact that dude is not going to be on the field.
Well, I mean, I think the Mixon one is doesn't matter as much because they've had Mixon go in the past couple of games without Nico Collins. So I don't think the Mixon one is as, just eliminated from the first one. I mean, they got him going against Green Bay. They had him going against New England as well. So I think you can count on that being a positive. Maybe is it a little bit harder to do? Yeah, because you can't throw the ball.
Here's my thing, though, with that. And this is – and I look, I think the Texans can find a way to gut this out. But here's my thing with that. Given the way in which he dominated the Colts, it almost feels like if I'm the Colts and you know that you're not going to even have to factor in Nico Collins, you almost look at this and say, all right, can we just – at this point, with what we saw from Tank Dell and Diggs and what we've seen from them so far, can we just key on Joe Mixon? It's kind of like when Amari Cooper just went ham on the Texans last year in matchup 1 with the Browns, and then D'Amico Ryans decided, okay, all bets are off. We're going to take him away, and we're going to focus on him, and you take him away. I think the fact that he completely thrashed him, I agree with you that I don't see Mixon getting shut out. But without Nico Collins out there, with what we saw week 1 with the Colts, it almost just feels like now you can just kind of key on Mixon, which I don't know that that's something that we've seen at this point.
I mean, what was Green Bay doing?
What was Green? I don't know. Green Bay was just pressuring CJ Stroud.
Mixon got going without the
damn. You sound like Texans radio right now, man.
Well, I just think you're very dismissive of Joe Mixon. You have been for a long time.
I've been dismissive of Joe Mixon. I said he was the second most important player on the team.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I just don't know why you think he's going to get shut down. Like, I just think
I don't think he's going to get shut down. I think they can focus on shutting him down. And I think there will be more of an effort to shutting him down.
I think Green Bay did the same thing. He still ran for 100 yards.
Did you think Green Bay was just stacking the box and trying to stop Joe Mixon? I thought that they just put the Minnesota blueprint out there. So they were stacking the box. It was man to man with Diggs and Dell. That's what you saw?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they look, Green Bay is a better defense than the Colts. And Joe still got going with all the things like no Nico Collins, knowing that Joe Mixon is good coming into the game, and Joe Mixon still got going.
Yeah, he's gonna get going. It's just I think there's gonna be an extra effort to stop him. I didn't think there was like an intense effort to stop Joe Mixon. I didn't think they said let's make CJ Stroud and Tank Dell beat us. And the other thing is, I think that the performance of Tank Dell needs to start being something that you rely on instead of, oh, that's good. Like I know that it's kind of, I don't know what the word is, but it feels like when everyone's getting blamed, and look, the protection limits what Tank has been able to do. He's got to step it up. Like Tank Dell has to have a good game. It has to be similar and maybe even better to what we saw from Tank Dell 2 days ago.
I mean, if you're relying on Tank Dell, you're going to be disappointed at this point. And
he's got to show up. He's got to show up.
He hasn't shown that he's capable of showing up yet. I mean, a couple of nice plays against the New England Patriots doesn't do anything for me. So I don't know if this is a Bobby thing. I don't know if this is a Tank thing. I don't know if it's a Tank and Bobby thing. I don't know if it's a CJ thing. But I mean, I don't know that you can rely on Tank Dell. So like, I mean, a couple of weeks ago we were like, hey, let's get him involved here. Is he getting open enough to get involved? Like, why can't either of these guys get involved on a scramble drill like Nico can? Like, is it that hard to get loose? I mean, we hear about the separation from Stefon Diggs and the expert route running from Tank Dell. A lot of good it's done. Hadn't got anybody open.
Yeah, and that used to be the strength of Tank Dell, is like the off script plays early with CJ. We really haven't seen that this year. And a lot of times he's running for his life. Philip asked, "Do you not trust our wide receivers?" Not really. I mean, I think they're okay. But I mean, if I'm Gus Bradley and I'm approaching this, I'm trying to stop Joe Mixon. I know I'm making CJ Stroud beat me, and I'm lining up man with Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell and seeing what's popping. That's what I'm doing. If Nico Collins is out there, I'm probably not doing that. But yeah, if watching this Texan squad and we watch it as close as anyone, I'm stopping Joe Mixon, especially with Nico Collins off the field. That would just be my strategy. And they'll just have to figure out how that goes. 6 points seems like it's a hefty spread. They're just gonna, I mean, they're gonna have to find a way to gut this out.
Well, and the scary part too is, in addition to if you're able to stop Joe Mixon, if you're the Colts, when they do try to beat you through the air or they have to beat you, you just pressure the quarterback and then they can't throw the ball.
Who, the Colts?
Yeah, like the formula seems pretty easy. Don't let the running back beat you, and when they got to throw, you're going to get pressure on the quarterback. So it's going to be damn near impossible for them to beat you only through the air. Yeah,
well, it just seems like the intermediate passes are there too. I'm talking myself into almost feeling like this is a really, really dangerous game. Maybe once I see Anthony Richardson for a few seconds, I'll feel better. I'm just not. I'm not as confident on this in this game as it appears you are.
Well, I mean, look, I just don't trust the opposing team's quarterback, so I just don't I don't know how they're going to consistently move the football. I mean, because the only reason it was close is because they hit 3 big plays last time. So I mean, Richardson does nothing to scare me. And maybe they turned it into the wishbone out there with Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, and they're able to run the football up and down the field like
Cody,
it's vintage.
The only reason it was close, Nico Collins played. Like Nico Collins played. Like
yeah, I'm talking about the Colts offense.
I get it.
Like they don't scare me.
I get it, but you say the only reason it was close was because the Colts had 3 plays. The reason that the Texans, a big part why they were so effective was because Nico Collins was out there balling the hell out.
Yeah, but I was talking about the only reason the Colts were able to score points is because they got those 3 big plays. Like, it's
But
not like they can.
they had to score more points because Nico was out there.
Yes. Okay. Nico Collins is not playing in this one. I understand that part of it.
Yes, that's why like the past stuff just doesn't mean as much to me. Let's hear from D'Amico Ryans. He talked about what he is and is not worried about. Kind of had a little bit of confidence about him. Let's hear D'Amico Ryans at his press conference yesterday addressing concerns, etc. When it comes to the Texans heading into the Colts.
In this together, and we'll be fine. I know everybody has questions on the offensive line. Of course, it wasn't a great outing. Hey, we move on. How do you show up this week? That's what it's all about, man. You show up, have a bad day, it happens. How do you respond to have a better day the next outing? So I'm looking forward to seeing our guys play this week.
All right.
Yeah, the have a bad day thing is just silly to me. Like,
well, I don't get it because it's contradictory to what he said on Monday. And look, it is what it is. He has to say what he says, but he literally said this has been an ongoing problem, and now we're saying it's a bad day. So yeah, I don't know.
And it's not just like he's like, it's not like it's just coach speak at the podium and nobody else is saying that. He's just saying that to cover up what happened. I mean, we were standing there talking to Titus Howard, and he's like, yeah, we usually don't make those mistakes. Yeah, you actually do usually make those mistakes. Yeah, you actually do allow a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
The coach said it.
Like I mean, man, the thought that this was, oh man, you know what? They had a real bad day. Yeah, when somebody has 5 really bad days, that's kind of who they are.
Yeah, and the thing is, and Rock brings this up. Shout out to Rock. Everything is on the table to it's just a bad day is kind of tough. And I'll ask you this: like, what will your reaction be if we're in the press box, sitting next to Texans cap, and we just see the exact same offensive line on the field? Like, what will your reaction be? Will it be, well, they can manage? Will it be, oh, well, maybe they can survive this day, and then it's inevitable that it's not going to be like, what will your reaction be? Because I do think if you go back and you just single out what D'Amico said about the O-line on Monday, which I thought was true, which I thought was very, very, very true. And I thought that was reality. And I don't think it impacts how your offensive line performs or anything. But if you listen to that and then you listen to Wednesday, it's a seesaw. Like it's not even close to the same thing.
It's very different. And my reaction will be, instead of having like the handheld flag for the white flag, I'll make sure that there's a flagpole for the white flag of surrender on this offensive line, because maybe they will have operated like I want them to if they run those same 5 guys out there, which is, we got a bottom 5 offensive line when it comes to pass blocking. Let's go out there and operate as an offense like that. Let's only, do things that can, keep that from ruining what we want to do offensively. Because do they have to change something for it to get better? Obviously, no, they don't. But would everyone feel a little bit more comfortable if they changed something in an effort to get better? Yes, we all would feel more comfortable about what they're going to put on the field. And again, open portion of practice is 20 minutes. And they've done this before, where what you see in the 20 minutes is different come game time. But I'd be, at this point, after what we saw and the way they've talked about it, I'd be really surprised if you don't see the typical 5 out there.
Zach on the super, very simple, very straight to the point.
Damn it, Bobby.
Slowick, 2 trash cans. Okay. See, I don't hate Bobby Slowick as much as a lot of folks. I hate the way that he finished the game, but I'm not as like dismissive. I don't know what he has to work with. Peter, little optimism. Always appreciate that. They cleaned up their penalties from previous. Maybe they'll clean up that the lack of communication problems.
Well, here's another thing about the communication is D'Amico Ryans got asked about the communication again, and his phrasing was something along the lines of, yeah, it is communication, but it's also just do your job and don't get beat up.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's like, oh, okay. So like, it's not just, hey, knowing what you're supposed to do. There's also an element of just like, you got to have the intestinal fortitude to play offensive line.
Let's hear more from D'Amico Ryans on the offensive line. Here's the head coach of the Texans talking about fixing the O-line.
It is fixable, and that's the encouraging part about it. All of it is fixable. Our guys have picked up these stunts and different things that we've seen. Our guys have picked it up before, so I'm encouraged, right, to see how our guys respond this week. We'll see similar things, right? Whenever one team does something on tape, you have to get ready and prepare for the next week because teams will see, like, have you put the fire out? So it's a great opportunity to see us go put the fire out this week. It's a tough challenge versus this defensive line. They do a great job of executing their stunts really well. So we know, we'll have our hands full again this week.
Yeah, and I'm us paneling says, I don't believe what they say until we see it. And I agree with that. I just thought that they were right on Monday. And I don't want to, like, what?
Here comes firefighter Kenyon Green. No, Kenyon, that's not water. That's kerosene. Don't do it. No, don't throw it on the fire. Firefighter. Golly.
What?
He said they're going to put their fires out.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about old Kenyon, man. I don't know about old Juice either.
I don't
confused by that.
I don't know how they can just feel comfortable going out there and putting the exact same 5 guys out there. That's baffling to me.
Yeah. Bubba Homeschool says it's not Slowick's fault. It's the OL coach, Strausser's fault. I don't think so, man. I really don't.
Nobody gave a damn about Chris Strausser last year when they had a new offensive line every week and they figured it out after 2 weeks and were able to. They allowed 12 sacks in the first 2 weeks, and then they didn't allow a sack for like 2 games after that. And nobody gave a damn about Chris Strausser last year. Like, it's not the offensive line coach. It's those 5 guys that walk out there wearing 78, 76, 70, 69, and 71. That's who it is.
Zach, on the Super, they need to teach Titus how to tie his shoes.
He stepped on Schultz's foot. That wasn't great.
Wasn't quite a great thing. Landry, you're always saying Scruggs is better than Patterson, though. I think he is. I think he is. I don't.
Well, just because he's better than Patterson, I mean he's good.
Yeah, that doesn't mean. I mean that's not saying a ton, but I think he is. I do. Truly do. So there's that. Another thing that might be in the Texans' best interest when it comes to finding ways to life without Nico is maybe getting Dalton Schultz available. We saw him have the 28-yard catch early on, and then we saw Dalton Schultz not have another catch, although he did lead the team in receiving with that 28 yards, which is, God, that's awful. I asked CJ Stroud about Dalton Schultz's production or lack thereof. Here was what CJ had to say about it.
You can point fingers from everywhere, you know what I mean? It's really ultimately up to me and Dalton and, really the whole team to, make things work for everybody. So, I'm not gonna sit here, point one guy out. And, Dalton knows, that he's very important to this football team, and he's helped in so many ways that, that a lot of people cannot notice. So, I'm not gonna, just point to one guy and be like, he's not doing this for this. I really can't do that, you know what I mean? But I have the utmost respect for Dalton. He knows that, and I love feeding him the ball. He's more times open than not, and, try to give him the ball every time that shows.
Here's the thing about that is, like, I don't think it's Dalton's fault that he's not getting as many opportunities. I think we kind of saw a glimpse of it. It almost feels like Dalton Schultz is like an option to get the ball out of your hands quickly. I don't know if it means running a 5-yard out, whatever. Like I say, like it just feels like in this situation, it shouldn't be like there's Dalton Schultz. It sounds crazy because you have Diggs and you have Tank and you have Mixon, but maybe it's almost like you should start from the inside out and try to figure something out with the offense. And maybe like make an effort to get Dalton Schultz involved instead of it just being, we dumped it off to Dalton Schultz, or occasionally we did this, or we're asking him to block. It might be something that they might need to look a little bit more into. And I'm open to suggestions. I'm sure it's all tied back to protection, as is everything that we talk about with this squad. But it just seems like before they got sacked out of field goal range on that second drive, when they found Schultz and they found Stover, it felt like they had something cooking, and it almost felt like those plays were more quickly developing than the other crap that they were trying to run that led to sacks. The reception from Schultz and the reception from Stover.
Yeah, I mean, those were two of the only decent plays through the air of the day, and they happened, real close to each other on the same drive. So, I mean, I don't know why we haven't seen that safety valve option from Dalton Schultz as much, and probably a lot of it is just he's got to stand in there and be basically a sixth blocker because they don't trust the five guys to do it on their own, and you don't trust Cade to do it as much as you trust Dalton to do it. So, and even on some of the other plays, like, Schultz is, CJ talked about it last week, the coach on the field thing. Like you saw it in the Green Bay game. He's like lining guys up, like telling them what to do. And the play sometimes doesn't go his way. I mean, he's not been the scramble drill benefactor from CJ Stroud in the time that Stroud's been the quarterback. So the safety valve, that leak out, I think the tough part is sometimes he goes to chip somebody and then that guy's making the play because the offensive lineman doesn't do their job. So, but get him going. I mean, yet again, they're going against a defense that's fresh off of letting a tight end have a huge day. Jonnu Smith was the top receiver for the Dolphins in the game that the Colts just won. He had a huge day. He was the number one target guy. He was their yardage guy. He's the only one that scored a touchdown for him. So, it's tight ends have had some success against the Colts. Get Schultz going. And once he works kind of that short stuff, that middle of the field stuff, maybe that makes things easier for Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs.
Could I interest you in a prop bet?
Yes.
Bet US right now. They have Tegan Quitteriano 19-1 touchdown. Can I sprinkle $8 on a Tegan Quitteriano touchdown? He's going in inside the 20. 19-1. $8 wins you about 150, something like that. Can I interest you in a Quitteriano TD?
I mean, $8, you're on your way to a sandwich from Jersey Mike's. I don't know if you want to waste your money on that.
What are you getting for $8 at Jersey Mike's?
You can get a sandwich for $8. I also said on your.
I don't know about that.
Also said on your way to a sandwich. I didn't say you're getting a whole sandwich.
Yeah, you better get you another 4 or 5 out. You want a sandwich at Jersey Mike's?
You can get one of the small ones for $8.
I don't know. Man.
Yeah, I got no interest in a Tegan Quitteriano touchdown prop.
He is blocking better though. There is that.
I mean, sure. I mean, when he's on the field, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not great. And it really isn't great when he's not. Let's be honest. The offense, not great. So we'll see what happens with Indianapolis. Bobby Slowick going to speak today. You're going
to ask him about the 3rd and 15 at the end of the game.
I mean, unless someone else wants to, it's fair game. I feel like, we haven't talked to him yet. So we got to.
Is he going to try to do the move on? We're talking about the Colts thing to you.
He can say whatever he wants to say. I don't know. Just give me what were we doing there? Bobby knows the deal. He's trying to be a head coach.
I'd like to know, and I got to figure out exactly how I'm going to ask him. But I asked Nico Collins about in-game adjustments the other day, and he basically said, if you're a good coach, you figure it out. I
think he's proven that. In a short time, he's kind of proven the ability to adjust, whether it's week to week or whether it's in game. I think D'Amico's done okay.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Amari Cooper game that we previously mentioned.
And so I want to know from Bobby Slowick, okay, walk me through how in-game adjustments work. What's going on here? Because they're one of the worst teams in the second half of football. They're 20th in second half points. They're 21st in third quarter points, and they punt on 64% of their third quarter possessions.
Say those again, please.
All right. I'll give you the full numbers here. Actually, you know what? I'll do a visual aid here because it's easier that way.
Lord.
They've had 22 possessions in the third quarter this season.
Okay.
They've scored 3 touchdowns, had 5 field goals, and they've punted 14 times, excuse me. That's an average of 3.7 points per third quarter.
So were 2 of those touchdowns against New England?
Correct.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
The other second half touchdown.
And it was a short field too, because it was after the Alshire punch out, right? That's correct. That was one of them, right? It was a short field.
It was the Daniel Hunter. It was Daniel Hunter. It was the fumble sack on May right out of the half.
Okay.
And then the other third quarter touchdown. So 2 were against New England, you're correct. And the other one was against Minnesota, when they made it 21-7.
Oh God.
14 punts on 22 possessions in the third quarter.
Man, and that's when, and I think that kind of explains the mental mind F that you go through, because typically when you're watching the Texans, like, you kind of see them in the first half and sometimes they try to steal points, and you're like, all right, let's get to the locker room and let's see how they adjust and how they respond. And I actually thought the Green Bay game was an example, because if you come out in the second half and you put together a good drive, then you're up 2 possessions or whatever, and they just I think they went 3 and out. I think they went 3 and out to start it. They damn sure didn't score. So it kind of goes back to how people are kind of feeling. Can they adjust? And in the third quarter, that's pretty telling. That's actually extremely telling right there.
Yeah, they went 3 and out, and then Green Bay took the lead on the ensuing possession.
Right.
Yeah, and then they punted, and then they punted, and then they punted. And
3 touchdowns in the third quarter. I'll be damned.
Yeah, 3 third quarter touchdowns. And just to kind of give you like a reference point, the best third quarter team in football is the Detroit Lions. They average 8 points.
Yeah, that guy does well.
Quarter.
Yeah, that Ben Johnson guy's doing okay for himself.
Yeah. So, maybe halftime adjustments are overrated. Maybe it's just really hard to adjust in the game on offense. Maybe we can just go with, hey, they can't pass block, so nothing works. But Slowick's got to have something for me here to kind of explain why they stink coming out of halftime. Like, that's awful.
Well, and I mean, a lot of times I don't know if it goes down like this or not, but a lot of times whenever like a coach has the ball first, it's like, okay, these plays are scripted and they have the script. And the most frustrating for me is which game was it where they didn't score on their first, they handed it off to Agumbawale on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 or whatever. And then they scored on their next 2 possessions. Help me out here. It was at home. Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo. They stopped Buffalo, and then Dare Agumbawale touched the ball 3 straight times, and they ran the ball up the gut. And then they ended up scoring on their next 2 drives. But that was the script, dude. Like the actual script, I think, unless it wasn't scripted, was hand the ball to Dare Agumbawale on 3rd and 8, and they ended up punting. And a lot of times when they're getting the ball in the second half, I'm like, are they scripting this? Are they looking at what the defense is giving them or whatever? And they're coming out flat. Like, it almost feels like the third quarter now. You remember when OB in 18, 19, when they just couldn't score on an opening drive with Deshaun Watson? Mm-hmm. And the only time they scored on an opening drive was when AJ McCarron started against the Titans at the end of the game, a throwaway game. 2019. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's almost what the third quarter feels like now with the Texans, which is weird because you're not really guessing. Like, you kind of have like maybe it's just too much information, but you have all this actual stuff in front of you on top of the film study, and you just struggle to do stuff. Like, maybe there's too much thought going on. But the other thing is this, Cody, and this is the reality of talking about this offense. And you see everything in the chat. I mean, we've even gone far enough to say they miss Brevin Jordan. Like, it's like we're throwing all these scenarios out there, and the offensive line isn't good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's really like we can sit here, and I know that we talk daily, and I do the night stream, and hell, we're talking a few hours a day about the Texans, and we're consuming as much information, and we're throwing all this stuff out there, and we're talking about they miss Nico Collins, Tank Dell's not doing this, Brevin Jordan, Dalton Schultz, all this stuff, Joe Mixon. Like, they can't run the ball without Joe Mixon. The offensive line's not good. Like you could literally just do 6 seconds a day to break down the offense, and we could just come on here and say, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots, S&L. We're talking about the Texans offense. The offensive line isn't good. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll let you know what goes on at practice.
That's why I'm not in like the pitchforks and torches version of, attack Bobby, like, storm the castle, get rid of Bobby. Is because like I feel like there's a very limited amount of things that he can do with this offensive line. The thing I wonder about it with the constraints of the offensive line is, has he tried everything? Has he done everything?
Well, and
or do they get married to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on Sunday?
And here's the other thing. And we shouldn't have let Fant walk. Like it's going all over the place, Mr. High. We shouldn't have let Fant walk.
Would he be playing? Like, that's the thing, is like I hear about George Fant all the time. They drafted a guy. They drafted a guy in the second round. He doesn't play. Like, they would still be playing. They'd still be playing Titus and Laramie.
But here's the other thing about the O-line. Like, if you really want to dive into the O-line, like on one hand, you say Nick Caserio, Laramie was already here, and Laramie's fine. Laramie's the least of their problems. Like, let's be honest. But Laramie was already here. We made him the highest paid offensive lineman in the league twice. Titus was already here. We made him one of the highest paid right tackles. Kenyon Green was drafted, but that was before D'Amico. Like, only 2 of these offensive linemen, 2 of the 5, were brought in with this system in mind. And I don't know how much that does or doesn't matter, but only 2 of the 5, Juice Scruggs and Shaq Mason, and the jury's out on both of those guys. But like, only a couple of those guys were brought in with this specific system in mind.
That is true. That is true. But this is also the thing is this is also the line that they wanted to have on the field for 18 plus months. Like when they made their draft picks in 2023, these are the guys they wanted out there. Like they're playing the positions they wanted them to play. It's not like somebody's out of position or something. Like when they entered the 2023 draft, they drafted Juice Scruggs. They knew they wanted him playing center. They were hoping Kenyon Green was going to be healthy to play. He wasn't healthy last year. Scruggs didn't play center because of injuries. Like, this is the line they wanted. So yes, hey, these were guys were already here. Do they fit the system? So on and so forth.
True.
Like good dudes figure it out.
True.
Also,
and they extended Howard. They extended Howard under this system. So that there you go.
Correct. So this is
Shaq.
This is the line they wanted. They did not have to pot commit to these guys. Like, but they are pot committed at some of those spots. Shaq and Titus, most notably.
And I think sometimes, like, whenever they invest in the O-line, it's like, oh, you got to protect the franchise. Well, it's got to be good protection. I mean, if you want a good insurance policy, but if you go pay $300 for a bad insurance policy, then what are you doing? You're really kind of setting yourself back a little bit. So, the offensive line is rough. Let's go on. Go ahead.
They got an insurance policy that only takes care of you at nighttime on Wednesdays. It's like, but I got in a wreck on daytime and Tuesday. Sorry.
It's like a 7 a.m. to 5 p.
You're fully covered from 7:01 a.m. to 7:02 a.m. Outside of that, you're screwed.
Hey, let me just tell you, this insurance policy works 21 hours a day on Sundays, but from noon to 3, you're on your own. Noon to 3, usually you're on your own. There's nothing there. Let's look at the other side of the rock. It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots. We're a couple hours from going to practice. Practice 11:15 today, right? Correct, right? Yeah. I always look after.
You always ask me and then look after.
Yeah, see, you don't know either. I just wake up, and then whenever I got to go to practice, I go to practice.
Well, I have it written down. It's 11:50.
Yeah, 11:50. Okay.
Bobby's set or scheduled to talk about 1:20.
Okay. So there you go. Shout out to Slowick. So 2 hours away from practice. Devin White was on the practice field. Not like a ringing endorsement from D'Amico Ryans when it came to Devin White. Just kind of seems like it's just a body, and they're kind of kicking the tires to see what he can do. I actually think this Devin White signing, I think it has as much to do with the 2 games in 5 days as anything. D'Amico kind of dismissed the question yesterday. What I was really asking, and he's not going to get specific, is are you hesitant to bring back guys with lower body injuries like Alshire, Woods, who am I missing? Ward. When you play the Colts and then you have to go to the Jets, like, do you kind of hesitate to do that? And at this point, like when you talk about Devin White, on one hand, you say, well, this guy's not close to what he was a few years ago. And that's correct. I mean, we thought he was one of the best young linebackers in the NFL. And now he's on his 2nd team this season and his 3rd team in, like a year plus.
He's a former 2nd team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler.
Right. And he was like the straw that stirred the drink when it came to Tampa Bay's defense. But I almost look at it and say, okay, he's an extra body. If you have to throw him out there in New York against the Jets, you're more so comparing him to Hansen than you are anything else. And I don't know that he's better than Jake Hansen right now, to be honest. I have no idea. But that's kind of how I look at it. I think this is just kind of like a what do you have to lose type of thing. Like I could see any scenario where Devin White's not on the team in 2 weeks, and I could see him being perhaps a rotational linebacker. And I think the way the schedule's laid out has a lot to do with him being here.
Well, when we talked to Brooks Cabina yesterday, I mean, he and Brooks covered White while he was in Philadelphia for the time that he was. It didn't sound like, he was physically broken or anything. Just sounded like he needed to get comfortable doing what a defense asks him to do. It'd be really nice if he just kind of hung around here and was allowed to kind of get comfortable, and then you could utilize some of that impressive athleticism that he showcased at his time. But I'm not banking on him being some sort of necessary cog to the offense. To the defense.
Yeah.
That's
no, I think it's a good tire kick. It's a hell of a tire kick though.
There's a very decent chance, or I wouldn't say very, there's a chance he's a former 1st-round pick. You still believe in his physical abilities. You get him in the building. You get him comfortable in the system. At the end of the year, he's a free agent. Hey, do you want to come back? You kind of got comfortable. You want to come back and maybe compete for a little bit more this year? Yeah, sure. And then, he turns into a nice depth piece for this linebacker.
The other thing about him, and I don't think we're really used to this, it's kind of like a new life when it comes to Devin White, but a lot of times you kind of look at like a move like this and you say, well, why the hell is he not already on a team? But when you are Devin White, I don't think Devin White was, begging to be on any NFL team. I think there's probably a large chunk of NFL teams that would kick the tires on Devin White if he were willing to go there. He's not going to the Tennessee Titans. He's not going to go to maybe not even Jacksonville. He's not just going to go anywhere to play ball. So a lot of times,
the Eagles wrote him a $3.5 million check when they cut him.
Yeah, and he was starting throughout camp. He was literally we heard Cabina yesterday say you thought he was going to be the starter. So I think a lot of times you naturally think this, and I think that's fair. But the Texans are at the very least the Texans aren't an elite team in the AFC. They're not the Chiefs and they're not the Ravens. We know that. We understand that, but they are on that 2nd tier. So it on one hand you say, well, why isn't this guy on a team? And I think that's fair-ish, but he also has the ability and the luxury at 26 years old, being a former All-Pro, to be a little bit selective. So I think there's, I think there's kind of that side. And the other thing about Devin White that I kept seeing yesterday was, he looks out of shape. He's always looked massive, man. He hasn't been playing football for months. So yeah, I doubt that he's just in game shape and ready to go out there and play 65, 70, 50, 40% of the snaps. But he's always looked big as crap out there on the football field.
He looks like he wears bigger shoulder pads than some of the guys too. He looks kind of throwbackish with the shoulder pad size. I feel like a lot of guys wear smaller sized pads, but some of the pictures you look at of him from Tampa, looked like he had a little bit bigger shoulder pads than other guys too.
Because in the past, when you would bring in a guy like him, it would be man, he's going to be your top linebacker and you're going to see what's up. Like even in like the recent ish pass, it's like, oh God, they're kicking the tires on.
Yeah, this ain't Camus Grugier Hill.
Yeah, but like he's really like maybe he turns into a rotational linebacker. Maybe he looks like he did a few years ago. Maybe D'Amico kind of sprinkles some of that magic dust on him. That's the other thing is if there is any hope, go ahead.
Wouldn't it be great if he was linebacker Derek Barnett, turned into a rotational player that they brought in middle of the year and then turned into a guy they wanted to bring back? Like, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is, like, if there was any position where you wanted to try to maximize what someone can be, I think that linebacker is at the top of the list when it comes to the Texans. And the defensive staff has really kind of shown the ability, and you can't say this about the offensive staff at this point. And I don't know that there's like any examples like it, but between Jalen Petrie and maximizing what he can be and adjusting, Eric Murray being like a serviceable-ish player, you still don't want him to be a starting safety in a perfect world. Derek Barnett, Fatakasi, Tim Settle, Hansen, and Hewitt. Like the defensive staff, say what you want about D'Amico Ryans, and I don't think anyone's like saying anything bad about D'Amico, but him and Matt Burke and that defensive staff have shown that they can get the most out of guys. And this guy seems to have a lot more of a recent body of work and high level of success to be able to do that. So we'll see how that goes.
I didn't look this up yesterday, but while you were talking about him, I went and looked this up just to kind of see like something about Devin White's game. Last year for the Buccaneers, he was the best linebacker and even had stats better than some of their DVs in pass defense. And quarterbacks had a rating of 63 when they targeted Devin White in coverage. And this isn't just like some small sample size. Like he had a bunch of coverage snaps and he got targeted a handful of times there. And he did really good. So, I mean, the athleticism and he could cover at least last year. That you got to have some sort of between the ears knowledge. And I just wonder if there's just a moldable.
I think you might have something, here. Man. I think you might have a little something.
Like a moldable piece of clay for D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, I think you might have a little something for sure. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to him today. Yesterday, he wasn't
probably got lost
by his locker.
New work building. Where's the cafeteria?
Hey, come on, dude.
Next thing you,
what do you say? Are you jumping in that he's out of shape right there with the cafeteria? Come on, man.
Next thing you know, it's like he's walking in with Toro without his head on. Like, oh, sorry, I was looking for the locker room.
Well, if he wants to walk in with Toro without his head on, all he's got to do is watch Will Kunkel interview him.
That really, I mean, I am really sad that we now know who Toro is.
Yeah, I saw Kunkel interview Toro, and then didn't who else did?
It's like when they
didn't Ultimate Fan interview him too?
Yeah.
Why are they interviewing Toro without his head on?
It's like when they unmasked Rey Mysterio.
Okay, there you go. I thought you were going to use another reference, and I was like, dude, don't be a slime ball. This is somewhat kid friendly.
It's like when they took Rey Mysterio's mask off, and it's like, oh, that's not what I wanted Rey Mysterio to look like.
Yeah, and then he became like him and Conan. Yeah,
he was like the Rascals or something. Is that what they were called? I can't remember what it was.
There's a picture of him in Astros gear.
Yeah.
Him and Conan.
Yeah. I'll never forget when Kevin Nash used Rey Mysterio like a lawn dart.
I'm never going to stop giving Kunkel a hard time about interviewing Toro.
Yeah. Wait till he talks to Santa Claus in December. April, Easter Bunny.
Remember when Toro was the biggest star on the Texans roster like 2 years ago?
Oh, when he was the mascot of the year? That was the only thing.
No, he was like the main attraction, dude.
Yeah.
He was the main attraction. All right, so we got practice today. We'll hear from Bobby Slowick. We'll both have videos reacting to everything that goes on. I got a feeling that the night stream, right? By the way, night stream got crazy last night. If you're not subscribed to the Locker Room, night stream is very loose. Yesterday it got really, really wild.
Sounds like it turned into Fight Club.
The super chat, I benefited from it. I said yesterday because people were just flexing their wallets in the super chat, and I was just kind of chilling. But I felt
you were talking about CJ Stroud, right? And then people just started yelling at each other in the chat.
Hey, shout out to Frank and shout out to Space City. Much love there. But yeah, I said I felt like I was benefiting from beef like P. Diddy, not the recent P. Diddy. I felt like I was the CEO of Bad Boy Records. Tupac and Biggie were just going at it.
We know your Diddy ties run deep. You got that great shirt as a party gift the other day when you went.
Sean John, baby.
Yeah.
Sean John, baby. All right, man. I appreciate you. I'll see you up there. We got exactly 2 hours till practice. We'll keep an eye out. The guys to watch for, obviously, that did not play yesterday. We got to see what's up with Jimmy Ward. We got to see what's up with Azeez Al-Shire. And we got to see what's up with Robert Woods, Steven Sims. We're good on that. But yeah, we'll see what goes on there. We'll give you the update. Be on the lookout on YouTube. Bobby Slowick going to speak a little bit later. We'll hear what Bobby has to say about his performance and moving forward.
Damn it, Bobby.
And appreciate y'all for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.